Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, your creativity and spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world, and let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. And before we get into this week's episode with Julie Dammar, let me just share with you some ways that I can support you. Remember, you can always tune into the sister podcast, Her Inspirations, where in each episode I explore with you a different aspect of our spiritual and creative journeys. And if you join the mailing list, you will receive emails with additional teaching points and resources for you to explore deeper on your own personal inquiry. Also, save the date for your diary, Wednesday, July the 10th. Next month, I'll be launching Unbounded, Be Creatively Free, which is and will be a monthly masterclass for you to join at no cost to help reignite your creativity, for expression, for your decision making, for your personal confidence. More details of that to follow. And also there is Your Awakened Voice, my course that empowers you to discover and develop your voice and be heard in the world. This course is using my holistic approach that acknowledges the connection between your physical body, mind and spirit. What would you create in your life if you embodied the power to realize it? I'm speaking to women over 40. You know you have decades of wisdom, and this new chapter of your life is about bucking against the limited narrative of society and creating the life that you deserve. Links to all of these are in the show notes below. My guest this week is Julie Dammar. She is creator of the Selective Hearing Podcast and health and wellness blog, and author of Sinkful of Dishes. Selective Hearing began as a weekly Facebook Live broadcast where she shared her personal traumatic experiences, which gradually expanded to include her blog and podcast, which offer valuable information and resources that assist her audience on their personal growth. Selective Hearing began as a weekly Facebook Live broadcast where she shared her personal traumatic experiences and then gradually expanded to then include her blog and podcast, which offer valuable information and resources and assist her audience on their personal growth journeys. During our conversation, Julie shares about the evolution of her healing that started with those very raw and painful social media shares into the healthy techniques that she learned and still uses today. We also discuss why people often do not ask the deeper questions when they see others suffering, and how she is breaking the generational patterns to create a different future for her children. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
When I'm doing things that I love, when I'm with my kids, when me and my husband have like moments where we're like almost like when we're kids, not when we're like mom and dad and Julie and Brian even, but like when we're laughing or being like extremely playful and just like letting go and having fun. Those are times where I think I really feel like that.
Before we get into our conversation, I just want to give you a moment, Julie, just to speak about how you got to where you are right now in the work that you're doing and the growth that you're experiencing for yourself.
So I'll go back to the beginning of when I had like this moment of saying like, I'm not okay. And that moment, the first time happened to me was when I got pregnant with my first child. And then I thought I kind of worked through it, but then it happened again. And it was really, really intense when lockdown happened. And it was lockdown, losing my job and being pregnant for the second time. So that was when I kind of had that, I'm not okay. And what do I do with not being okay? And the best thing that I thought I could do was go online and start talking about it with people.
Mm.
So that's what I did. I went online, I went on Facebook, and I started giving all my problems to my audience, which were just friends and family at the time. So I created a show called Selective Hearing. And Selective Hearing at first was a dress up for Thursday night at 7 p.m. live trauma dumps.
Mm.
And that's where I was giving all of my pain. And I talked about all kinds of stuff. I was talking about politics. I was talking about pop culture. I was talking about my life. Like, I was just mixing in every feeling, everything that I had going on in the world in this 1 hour of live sessions with people. And then I started having people ask me questions about it. And what are you doing about it was one of the things that came up often. So I guess I had to do something about it. I had to figure out what to do about it. And that meant getting real help. So that meant therapy and a life coach. That's what real help looked like for me. And then understanding when that help came, that there's actually tools that you need. Like, you can have this deep want and desire to not have a certain kind of life, but if you don't know how to have that life, you're just going to end up doing the same things that you've always done. So that's where my coach came in, really. My coach, therapy was cool, but my coach was like that person that gave me those tools, and she asked me some questions, and she really pushed me. She didn't like let up on me. And she was the person where I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. So that's kind of how it started.
So where are you at today? And then we'll go back.
So today I am still on the journey, still very much on the journey, but I am also applying the tools. I'm able to like see when things are coming up. Like, I know what triggers are now. I know what, like, certain things, when I do certain things, like anger is something that I've dealt with for a long time in my life, like anger. And it's not just anger with me, it's like ready, set, go. So it's get mad and then explode. So now I know when I'm like having that rise up, like, I know what that feels like, what that looks like, and what that can be. So I know, like, okay, I need to breathe. I need to remove myself from the situation. I need to ask myself why, like, and I've even grown in becoming more comfortable with saying, mainly the person who's around me when that happens is my husband. But I've become more comfortable with saying, like, my favorite thing is say, I gotta table this right now. I need to table this and I need to come back because I'm getting mad. And then walking away, or even with kids are really triggering. I had told my kids, like, mommy needs a minute. And their favorite question is why? And like, because mommy needs to take a deep breath and then we need to figure this out. And they're like, okay. But those are the things that I really learned to do that I didn't know. One, I didn't know how to do, and I didn't know that I could do them. Because I grew up in an environment where I was not allowed to say something's wrong, say you're hurting me, say I don't like that, say that's not okay, and don't do it again. I grew up in a space where that was viewed as disrespectful. So if these things are disrespectful and not tolerated, and even in a lot of situations met with punishment, or like physical punishment, or me being told extremely horrible things about myself, then as an adult, I grew up to believe, like, if I bring this to you, it's gonna be met with some sort of recourse. So I lived in a space of being shut down until I couldn't take it anymore, and then exploding.
Perfect, thank you. The first thing I want to ask you is, what gave you the courage to go, do you know what, I'm going to go online and do this? Because many people will have thoughts about being out there, putting their stuff out there, but then will talk themselves right back into, no, I'm not going to do this. Something will pull them back. What made you just press the button on publish and go and be live and talk out? What was propelling you forward through that?
I was tired, and I had this thing in me where it was like, once it's out there, you can't take it back. So I won't have any choice but to keep telling my story. And that was really what it was. Like, once I put it out there, there's no going back. And so the people in my family that needed to hear it were my Facebook friends. So it was like, that was a way of telling them, or indirectly telling them, because I also live in a family that is like heavy in gossip culture. So I knew like somebody was gonna be like, oh, did you hear what Julie said last night? Or, oh, did you see? I knew it was gonna get around the town. And I needed it to get around the town because I was tired of entering spaces where I was super uncomfortable and pretending like I wasn't. I was tired of entering spaces at family functions and, all these different things and pretending like I felt safe, pretending like I wanted my kids there, pretending like everything was all right. Like, I was tired of it. So this was a way of like just shoving it down everybody's throat and saying, I don't like being around, or I don't like you because you hurt me, or because you protected people that hurt me, or because you pretended to act like you didn't know these people were doing these things. And that's what happened.
And what were what started to come back to you as a result of that? What was the initial feedback?
I'm no contact with a lot of my family. Like, it's hard. And a lot of people didn't want that or need that. So that's the reality of it. It really ended a lot of relationships. And for a long time, like, I had to live in that grief as well. Because it was like I was losing people that I was hoping would get the message and heal and be a part of this. But them stepping away showed me that they couldn't be. And that's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah. I'm nodding and because I hear I hear and I feel and I know, because I don't even know if we went over this when we spoke before, but it's a decision that I had to make a few years back, where I'm like, it wasn't within the family, it wasn't physical, but it was psychological and emotional. And sometimes, because things aren't necessarily coming from you externally and they're just a drip on your psyche, and if nobody else sees it and you're the one that's experiencing it, and also you don't have an outlet, when I'm saying you, I'm saying me, have you question whether it actually happened, because like one day someone can be like all sweetness and light, and then the next minute like the darkness comes out, and then the next minute it's all back to normal again, and you're like, didn't the what the and especially when the few people that are witness to it don't speak up, then it just sounds like, for you, it's like, did that actually really happen? And it, over the course of time, I didn't really take it on board until it came to a head where it was undeniable, and I had to record some things, because it would be like one day where it just be like full on, and then the next day it would be like, did that happen? So I started to audio record things. So not so much that I wanted to sit down and listen to the whole episode, but so that I had a record of the fact that it happened, not thinking it was a figment of my imagination. And in a similar way, expecting people to ask more questions, be more curious about why I made my decisions, and that never happened. So I resonate with the grief, of stepping away from the grief of having to separate to save yourself, but also the grief of the expectation that you had for certain people, thinking they would be intelligent enough or empathetic enough to want to know where you were at and what you were feeling. So, I share in a lot of that with you. What I wanted to ask as well, we were talking about trauma dumping, because when it does come to a point that you find that you have an outlet, and then now, like years, decades of suppressed emotion and experience has finally found a place to flow out and come out. It can be that you go from holding yourself back to just like all holes barred, and it all comes out, right?
Yeah.
So how far did you go? And then when did you realize that you needed to start to rein it back in because people weren't managing it well?
Okay, so I started reining it back in once I started getting help.
Mm.
And once I started journaling and doing these exercises, so my coach gave me like this wheel, and the wheel was showing me how everything was connected. So I had to write all these things out and do all these, and then we were doing these exercises where she was showing me how this was connected to this and this was connected to this, and it all kept going back to childhood and all these unresolved traumas and how, my inner dialogue was impacting me and how I was starting something here, stopping, starting something here, stopping, telling myself to do this and like then this with family and this and like it was just like this giant explosion and it worked its way all the way up into my marriage and my, me as a mother. So I was like, I stopped going live because then that's when I started connecting to like what I'm doing isn't healthy for the people who are listening, who actually do care about me and who did ask, well, okay, what are you doing about it? So I was like, okay, no more Facebook Lives. I'm just going to write a blog. Now, my blog in the very beginning was no better. It was just, it was almost like diary entries and extremely broken poetry, but I was just still putting it out there. And as I continued to grow and develop, things started changing and it shifted. There became a point where it kind of shifted from these trauma dumps and these trauma induced blogs and poetry and all this to, hey, I have trauma, but guess what I learned? Because then when I started learning things and started applying things, I started feeling really good. So then I didn't necessarily want to just share the, oh my God, this happened to me. It's so heavy. It hurts so bad. I wanted to share, like, it only hurt a little bit today. It didn't hurt as much today. And this is what I did. So the blog started shifting like that. And then I was like, I want to talk about the shift. And found myself having conversations with people saying, oh, when you told me this, I understood. I've been through this. This is what I did. Or what did you do? Because I need help too. And I was like, oh, I want to talk about it again, but this time I won't go live. I'll do podcasts. I'll bring on people to share their stories, and I'll bring on people who can offer resources to the listeners. And it started to build this community of you're not alone. You know, you can get over. Here's help. Take it one day at a time. Take it one step at a time. But that's what it ended up growing into. The show went on a growth journey with me. So Julie was growing and the show was growing and evolving with me. So that's where I am with it today.
It's beautiful when you do find an outlet that if you go back and listen to your own journey, it's not just about the journey of your own outlet, but also the journey of you. I know that if I listen back to like early episodes of my podcast, like to me, my voice sounds different then because I know where I was mentally. And, there've been a lot of things. So even at the beginning, just to be saying my name in the mic was a big old thing, which sounds bizarre because I come from like a background of music and performing, but so much has happened in some interim years that I'd shut completely down. So then to just say my name into the mic and say that I was going to do this was, a big evolution. What was your process, or how did you process, or how did you approach becoming a mother? Knowing that you had a background that had troubles and trials, and maybe, when you first started to move into that and realizing that you were creating a life for yourself as a mother and a new chapter of your life, how did that impact you in terms of how you changed or how you approached things? I know you said when you started Facebook, you were on your second pregnancy, but in particular, your first.
So my first pregnancy, I had like this list. Like, I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to hit. I'm not going to blame, shame, punish, label. Like I had all these things that I went through and I was like, I'm never doing that to my kid. I'm never doing that to my kid. Then you become sleep deprived. Then you have no support because I'm terrified of the village I was born into because they hurt me. So I can't call you and ask you to help me because you may hurt me. And furthermore, you may hurt this child who doesn't deserve it, just like I didn't. So then you become isolated. I suffered postpartum depression. My world came crashing down. And the only thing that I could do to kind of help was reach for external things. So with my first child, I went back to work and I would work at night. So, well, yeah, I would work at night. My husband worked in the day. I worked at night. So I would be home all day after working all night and then leave at night. And my husband would have him while he's sleeping and all that. So it became even crazier for me. I ended up like in a place where I just was like, I can't do it. I literally felt like I couldn't do it anymore. And right when I felt like I got to that final like breaking point, COVID came. And then I literally found out right into COVID, hey, you're pregnant again. So what do you do now? What do you do now? Where do you go from here? I learned from a parenting coach that you can have all the list of like what you don't want to do, but if you don't have the tools to not do these things, then all you're going to do is kind of like repackage them. And I did. And I was a very permissive parent. That's what I became. I was heavy into practicing permissive parenting because I didn't know how to be a healthy parent. I didn't know about boundaries. I didn't know about healthy discipline. I didn't know about natural consequences. I didn't know about any of these things because they just weren't taught to me. I was just creating something in my mind that I thought was better than what I had experienced. So even with me as a parent, it took me reaching out and talking to a parenting coach. And I read books. And I follow parenting coaches on social media. I listen to their podcasts. I watch, and read their blogs because it's literally like I just went 7 alternatives to timeouts. That's the one that I'm on right now. There's a blog that I started reading this week, Consciously Lisa. If anybody ever wants a phenomenal parenting coach with blog and podcast, she's great. Like, and she makes everything so simple for you to understand. But that was something too, because that's like in the African American community, like we don't talk about these kind of things. And we don't talk about how to resolve these things, or even I don't see people that look like me that are saying, hey, I went through this, changed this. Let me help you change it too. So that's why I really like feel connected to her. And I think she's Haitian American. So I like feel super connected to her because like she puts all these things out there and a lot of things she talks about. It's like, yeah, I went through that too. I understand that. And when I'm getting ready to go, and I have yelled at my kids. The big thing when I yell at my kids is like going back and telling them I'm sorry, I'm not perfect, I'm going to do better. You can hold me accountable, things that I just wasn't allowed to do.
You know what's coming to my mind as well? There's like something about the past 20, 30 years, this like generation, like that, my generation, your generation, that have looked at how we were brought up, and obviously we're grateful to have, breath in our body, so for the gift of life, but there were things that were done that weren't done well. And we're the generations that are looking at what that means and not wanting to perpetuate it. That's not to say everyone, but it's like more so now, more prevalent now than it has ever been. And also the fact that with technology, it's so possible to just find somebody who really is like as close to you as possible in terms of background and all the things that you need to align to be able to open up with someone, because it's not everyone who does the thing is going to talk to you in the right way, and so that you feel that you're going to be heard and you're going to resonate and go, actually, yeah, she's speaking not just the information, but then has a perspective that makes me believe her more and trust her more, and that that comes from so many other things. And where I'm going with this is I'm asking about the people that come to you and the people that connect with you. Who kind of aligns with you, who reaches out to you, and what similarities do you notice in them that you see in yourself?
So surprisingly, even though I talk about my kids every single episode, I don't get a lot of moms that reach out. Sometimes I do, but really I just get women that reach out to me and tell me that they've been through that. I've recently been speaking more because I address it in my book about me being a victim of childhood sexual trauma. So I've had women reach out to me and say, me too. And that for me is huge because every person that I've spoken to about being sexually assaulted as a child never told anybody. Or when they did tell someone, no one believed them. And the same thing happened to me, but there's this question in me that has not been answered. And it's just why? Why aren't we believing these children when they say, someone touched me, someone hurt me? Why are we so okay with overlooking that? And we're not looking at all the signs. Like for me, all the signs were there when I was growing up. And I often speak about how no one ever said, but why?
Mm-hmm.
When people say, oh, she got suspended for fighting, or oh, she got into this, or, I caught her with a boy, or oh, whatever. Like no one ever said, why? And I hear this from other women, and there's a part of me that gets very angry, but then there's a part of me that's like, okay, you have to keep putting this out there. You need to keep talking about it, keep showing certain things that, went on with you, the fighting. There was a point in time where I dressed, and it was in the 90s, so it was easier to do because that was the style, but I dressed like a boy. There was a time where I literally would not, even with my husband, want him close to me. Like I would go through times in our relationship where it's like, don't touch me. I'm very uncomfortable and all these things. And nobody goes, why? What are you going through? What are you reliving? What happened to you? Nobody's addressing these things, and we need to.
Mm.
And then we need to hold the people that are doing these things accountable. For me, I learned that I had situations that occurred in my life that set me up to be a victim. Like the predator was watching, he was in the family. He knew how my mother and father were. He knew the kind of child that I was being groomed into. I was the perfect victim.
Mm.
He knew I wasn't going to tell. He knew I was afraid to tell. I thought that if I told on my rapist that I would get in trouble because I got in trouble for everything. Everything I did was wrong and it wasn't good enough. So I thought that I had to keep this secret because if I didn't, it was going to be my fault. And when I finally opened my mouth and told somebody, it was my fault. And that story is so true for so many women. So it's very important for me to talk about that. It's very important for me to keep shining light on that. And it's very important for mothers and daughters and just women and men, because it happens to boys too, to understand that and to say something.
Why do you think it is that people don't ask questions? Why?
So first I thought people just don't care. They don't care enough about me to want to know what's going on. They can't see past themselves. But then the older I got, and now especially where I'm on this journey, I really think it's just fear. Fear, like you didn't want to know because you're afraid. And that would really mean you would have to look at yourself too.
Mm.
And some people just, and I'm learning this too with my whole thing about expectations. Some people just aren't capable of that. And they have to continue to tell themselves the lies or the story so that they can be okay.
Mm.
And I am a clear disruption to that. So that's what I've learned.
Good observation. Yeah. You know, I had issues of that same thing. I'm like, surely, you know, because there is a vast number of people in my family that think that I'm mentally ill, you know, because the narrative has been played so strong. And even when I was trying to like explain my reasons for separating away and going, well, this has been happening to me. One of the things that got said to me was like, well, you know, that person's okay with me. You know, they've always been nice to me, you know, and
Mhm.
when I'm like, okay, this is what I'm up against here. In fact, I'm not up against it. I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm going to have to separate and walk away. And there was never that why question. And for a long time, I was like, are these people not intelligent? You know, wouldn't you want to know what's going on deeper than just like, it's that and it's this now without any curiosity? But, you know, coming to that realization like you did, that there is this fear because the minute that you start asking questions and you get in the energy of a question, life starts bringing you the answers. And sometimes the
Mhm.
answers, you know, the answers are not necessarily, you know, the truth of what's going on. If you're like, what's happening here, what's going on, and then you start to see it, it doesn't always come on a silver platter with a bunch of roses. Sometimes it's like dark and hard, and you know, realizing that you have to reconfigure your own history based on the truth that you now know, you know, and it's like you say, it's some people just aren't capable for that. And on some deep level, there's part of them just going, you know, just
Mm. No. Yeah.
we ain't gonna do it. We ain't gonna do it. So where are you with that now? Now that you are, you know, aware that for them, their reasons for not reaching forward may not be because they didn't care. You know, you know, whether you'll have clarity on that is, you know, only you will know that. But in terms of how you've put that into perspective for yourself, how do you see the people that you realize that were in fear? Are you able to, you know, connect with them, empathize with them? What's working for you and what isn't working for you on that?
So I have empathy for them. And I said recently too, I feel like this sadness because I'm sitting on the other end of the spectrum. So I know, like, as hard as it is, I know like how free I've been starting to feel. And I know how full life is because of that freedom. And seeing someone live like that, and I know like there's a greater potential. There's a sadness that comes along with that because I'm like, I really don't want to see you leave this world in that space. And like that is like a running theme right now with me. It's like I don't want that for you, but it doesn't matter because this is all you want for you.
Right.
And I'm also in a space of separation because I know what they're capable of. And I can't let you hurt me again.
Mm.
And I could never ever let you hurt my children. So that is like where the spaces that I occupy right now. And it's hard. It's hard. Like, especially when your kids see their friends with grandparents and they ask about theirs, or they see you know, with certain cousins or aunts and uncles, and they ask, do they have these things?
Mm.
That's a very difficult space to be in as a parent.
Mm.
But I try to do my best to surround us with healthy community and with to make sure that they have unconditional love at home and in the community that we've chosen. And I let my kids, even though, you know, they're 5 and 3, choose their community. So it's different than what I ever thought it would be entering into a marriage and motherhood when you think about, oh, what family is supposed to look like and what, you know, you when I grew up, I went to my grandma's house and there were 20 cousins spending the night and all this. But then when you're sitting on this end of it, you're like, what was happening when 20 of us were there? And what space was grandma in? Because 20 kids were left on her. And maybe 10 of them were living there when the other 10 of us went home, you know, like all of these things. So I'm very mindful of that. And I'm really making sure that I do my best and I give myself grace in all of this because I'm learning all over again. It's almost like I feel like, like your what is it, like K through 12 all over again. Like I'm reschooling with a
Mm,
whole new set of books because I didn't know any of these things.
mm.
And it took a lot of time to get in this mess. So I'm slowly working my way out of it.
What kind of conversation is possible? I know you say that your kids are young right now. What kind of conversation is possible to have around them so that they are able to get the understanding and recognize that there's a reason why there needs to be this separation, but also so that they don't develop and have like issues around trust? What can you say to them to go, okay, these are the reasons why we're here, but also these are good people, these are that, especially when you're talking about your family and the narrative is that like family is the safest place for you, which is not true for probably a higher percentage of people than dare even admit to that their family isn't safe for them in any way, shape, or form. But how do you go guiding them to go, okay, this is, these people are safe? How do you open that up to them so that they can start to recognize and also trust their own instincts around feeling when they're feeling unsafe?
So I honestly haven't found a way to tell them the things
Mm,
because I don't want it to be a smear campaign either.
mm,
Because I'm a part of the smear campaign. I've already been smeared. So I don't want it to sound like that. So luckily, a big part of our family lives far away. So I just say everyone lives far away. And then with their grandparents, I just say they're busy right now. They're working, but they love you. And I teach them about boundaries. And I teach them that it's okay to talk to me. And I create spaces where they feel open with telling me things. My kids probably are some of the most open kids. They say everything. Like they go tell everybody everything. So I create those kind of spaces with them and we sing. So my kids have boundary songs. Um,
mm,
I'm not gonna sing it to you guys, but they say boundaries, boundaries, give me my space. Boundaries, boundaries. I'm not cool with that today. And they'll say what they don't like. And it grows as they start developing more boundaries. Like the song is like so long for my 5-year-old. And my 3-year-old will just say, I don't like that. Or he'll say, no, touch me, or things like that. So when they get really uncomfortable, I teach them to sing. And I'll be like, well, what do you do? Or they get frustrated. What do you do? And like it may sound like boundaries, boundaries, but they sing the boundary song.
mm,
They we do nice hands. What are nice hands? What are not so nice hands? They know all their body parts. They know if someone is interacting with them in something and they're not comfortable with it, they know that it's okay to tell somebody that. And if the person doesn't, respond to what they're saying, they know to go get help.
mm,
So
mm.
there's just these things. Again, I had to be taught these things. I
Right.
was taught as a child that boundaries were not existed. Beating your children is like no boundaries, all these things. So entering your child's space, bossing your child around, like all these things, no respect for them, no respect for their opinions or their thoughts or them as a person. I was disregarded. So I allow them the space to communicate, the space to, tell people things, tell me things. My kids will tell right in front of you as well. Like, so I'm not only sharing these things with them, but I'm sharing things with the people around us too. Like we
Mm.
talk, we're comfortable. If you are a predator, we're not the family, you know?
Good for you. That's powerful. That really is, so transformative. These instances of abuse happen more times than not, but they're so clamped down on that it just kind of goes on and perpetuates itself and never really gets dealt with, because no one really wants to be the one that asks the question or then starts the dialogue or knows how to like bring a new generation into that, especially if that's been your history, and being able to bring them into the world so that they know to speak if they feel unsafe in a way of clarity, you know, wherever, instead of feeling that anyone can come and step over your authority with them, that tells them like, if that's not cool, come tell me, you know, because so many times it's not the case for others. So, you know, I applaud you for doing that. And also going into that step of being a mother. Even I know I made a choice to be, I'm not going to go into motherhood until I've cleaned up a lot of my stuff, you know, and time ran out. So I didn't, you know, I didn't have that, because I just saw that there were things that needed to be dealt with. I didn't want to be bringing that onto another generation. I couldn't bear to be the perpetuator of things like that. So, you know, I'm in awe of you taking that brave step, because like you say, you don't know what motherhood is. You know, you can have this list of things you don't want to do, but then best laid plans, right? You know, they go one way and they go another. So congratulations on you. And then as neatly segueing it as possible, because you guys have just had Mother's Day and you've just released your book. So speak about your book.
My book is called Sink Full of Dishes, and it's another one of those exercises that I did and then put out for everyone to read, and hopefully it be like a tool. So it's another experience of mine. So with all the things that happened to me, of course, I developed a horrible negative narrator that lives within me, and that narrator controlled so much of me. It had so much power, and I had to do something about it. So I started writing down all the things that she would say. I named her. Her name is Monica. So I gave Monica a name, and I wrote down everything that her big, powerful voice would say to me. You know, you're not enough. You're just like your mom. You're not worthy. Why do you think you can do that? You know, all the things and more. And then after that, I went back and I read it. And then I decided to write a book. So what I did was I took this voice, this horrible voice, and I met her with compassion. And I met her with love, because it was like, okay, I'm hearing all the things that she's saying to me, right? And then I learned, while I'm hearing all these things and I'm writing all these things down and I'm talking to my coach about it, I learned like, well, you know, like you're saying, she's this big, horrible, powerful voice, and you're letting her control your life, but she's also a part of you. So that shifted, like, okay, so she needs love too. You know, she's showing up. She's a defense mechanism, I guess, you know, if you will, defense mechanism. She's here to warn me. She's here to protect me. She's seen a lot of stuff. So she's here to do all that. So I'm like, okay, so meet her with love, meet her with compassion, meet her with the things that you wanted and needed in those times, you know? Okay. So I started writing this book, and I was like, I'm gonna pull Monica out. I'm gonna give her a husband. I'm gonna give her kids, and I'm gonna give her a life. And I'm going to go through a day of Monica. She wakes up, she's not feeling good. And what does she do? And she just runs through her day and creates like just chaos and more chaos and more chaos. And there's a buildup. And in between all of these chaotic chapters or acts, because I kind of wrote it like a play, in between all these chaotic acts, I stop you and I have an interlude. And in that interlude, I break down why Monica is behaving the way she's behaving, because, you know, that was a big thing I struggle with. It's like, why didn't anybody ever ask me, why is Julie behaving this way? You're punishing me for it. You're doing all these things to me for it. But the one thing you're not trying to do is figure out why. So I tell you why Monica is behaving this way. And then I give you tools that were given to me to help with it. And then I give you workbook pages afterwards to ask yourself these questions. Have you been there? What did that look like for you? How did it make you feel? What did you just learn? What can you do in the future, to give yourself more love and compassion, to meet yourself with more grace, and to help, you know, say, hey, it's okay. We got this. And you take that power away from your negative narrator and redirect it into something that'll serve you better. So that's how it goes. In each chapter, I go against my husband, I go against my kids, I trauma dump on my friends. I do all the things that, I really did do. And then at the very end, I come back around. Monica comes back around and she reflects. And then in that reflection, she asked herself, what do I need to make sure that when these things happen, I can address them in a healthier, more kinder way? Mm. And so that is the book. And it may sound very long, but it's only 72 pages. I get it. I go in quick. I get deep really fast, but I get you through it. And it's small, so you can carry it with you because the tools are in there. Like if you're having a day and you're out and you're like, oh, what can I do? What kind of breath work, or what kind of, stop, or even grounding wherever I am, like all kinds of things that are in there that can just help you move through these spaces. And I even speak about, in the beginning, what helped me was yelling at her. So I didn't care where I was. If Monica showed up, I'd be like, girl, not today. Lies. No, we're not doing that. Like, you may be like in the supermarket or anywhere and be like, what is this lady doing? Like, what is she going through? But I'd be like, maybe grabbing something off the shelf and be like, no, girl, not today. Lies. Because it would shut me down. It would give me that minute to separate from her. And then to come back into myself and say, well, what's going on today? Mm-hmm. Why are you so anxious? Why are you feeling like this? What happened? And there's a lot in me that I'm carrying. So there's a lot of different things to find that, make her show up, but I'm getting through it. And I want to help other people get through that too.
That sounds good. So powerful. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I hope as many people find out about that and you go on the road about it and talk about it, because, it's tools like that are so needed, tools like that are so needed. So good for you for doing it. Good for you for getting it out there as well. So thank you so much. And before we finish, do you have any last words that you want to share about what's happening, what's coming up for you? We've got the book. Anything else?
We got the book, and I am planning a book signing / live podcast episode where people can come in and they can get pictures with me, they can get their book signed, and they can ask all kinds of questions about Monica, about me, about my experience, about the book. And that is in the works right now. So everyone can follow my website for, the countdown to that and all the information, location, and where they could get tickets and everything. But that is the big thing that I'm working on right now.
Tell everybody where they can connect with you and also listen to your podcast as well, Julie.
So my website is selectivehearingshow.com. And my podcast is called Selective Hearing, and that is on Apple, Spotify, and all the major places. So it's Selective Hearing with Julie Dammar. And my book, Sink Full of Dishes, is now available on Amazon.
Thank you. Thank you so much today, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Julie, for sharing with me, and thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave a review and to also share it with somebody who you feel will benefit from Julie's message. Again, I'm reminding you, save the date. The 10th of July is when I launch Unbounded, Be Creatively Free, the new monthly workshop. Find out more about me on my website. That's carolmaywhittick.com, CarolMaywhittick.com. Find me on Instagram as Casmic, CAZMICK. and on LinkedIn and Facebook as Carol May Whittick. Until the next episode, have a great week. Take care.